so if we make a start for this morning, brief schedule of what we're going, people who are presenting today. So we're starting off with Craig Harris. I'm sorry, I did the English spelling, not the world spelling. So there's an E there that I will change. So we're talking about brand energy with Craig, then we've got Steve with transmedia storytelling, and we go on through the morning until we end with a nice uplifting talk from Hamish Jenkinson, who works with Banksy and all sorts of other people, so that should be very interesting this evening. So a nice creative thing to finish up with. So, so to start off with, I'd like to introduce Craig. One of the most impressive things I know that he did is the rebranding of Northern Rock.
Yeah.
Which, incredible challenge, and if you can do that, you can do anything, I think. So, so we're looking at about the brands and how we communicate, so I'll leave you to it.
Okay, lovely. Can I turn this on?
Yeah.
Just do that.
Yeah.
Where's you going to put the presentation up? Oh! This? Okay, good morning everyone. I've changed the title of my presentation, and as I go through it will make more sense, hopefully. But my background is as a brand and communications strategist, so I've worked for the last 15 or so years in advertising agencies in the UK, Asia, America, both big international agencies and smaller creative agencies. So that's my point of view. So I'm going to be talking about from a brand and communication point of view. So the title is Brands Can Learn a Lot from These. Okay, and I really love this picture, so I'm just really excited about trying to get that into the title. But really, thinking deeper than that, it's about why the way brands work needs to change. And I think there's big implications for gaming, so I'll come on to talk about that later. Okay. Influx and a state of change. And so the whole marketing approach has changed a lot over the last century. From localized marketing to a more scientific, rational approach, from more CRM, direct marketing type things in the 50s, to sort of the era of brand image and aspirations, of emotional benefits and all that kind of stuff. And this chart is actually from After Image by a guy called John Grant, another planner. And his contention is that millennium is going to be all about intellect and conceptual. So it's about learning and self-development. Now, what I'm interested in is, okay, what era are we in now? How has that moved or changed? And obviously, everyone talks about social and how important social is. And of course, that's going to be at the core of how we develop brands and things move forward. In the teenies. But what does that really mean? Now, a skeptic might say, taking on board this dystopian vision of what we might be, the world we might be living in going forward. And this is summed up really well by Russell Davies of RGA, which is a Blade Runner future brought to us by Silicon Bank. Okay, so there's not a lot of quality in there. It's all about us being kind of profiled and having messages thrown at us, and brands just, having low quality communications fired at unsuspecting audiences. Now, that is a very cynical view, and I don't think it has to be like that. And hopefully it won't be like that. So the kind of stuff that I'm interested in is the kind of approaches that are really leveraging this social world that we now live in, this connected world, but in a very positive way, that actually has a real kind of brand ideal behind it, that people, i.e. the consumers of the brand, can actually be a part of and get involved in, and actually feel better about and more committed to that brand as a result of being a part of it. So I've got the example of Innocent, the Big Knit, which was not really about smoothness at all. It's about helping older people in the winter and really tapping into a cultural phenomenon which is the re-emergence of knitting as a pastime, and helping older people in the process, and probably selling some more innocent smoothies at the same time. So all good, everybody benefits. And so my contention is that we're in the era of the social brand. And the whole idea of a social brand is really, really interesting. Because at the core of it is both people and brands coming together. And that's what I'm going to be talking about. Now, we go back a stage and think about the traditional approach in marketing. Going back to that chart we were looking at, it was all about broadcast. And it's about brands saying, aren't we clever, we've got this great thing that we want to tell people about, and now we're going to make them do what we want and buy it. And clearly, that doesn't really sit very well with the world that we're living in. And we have any Americans here. Here's another example of that approach. Hopefully no Republicans. But one of the real issues to me, and having worked in the advertising industry for quite some time now, is that I spent most of my time trying to brief people to create communications and trying to get them, put them in the shoes of people that they're far removed from. So the big issue for me is that a lot of ads are written by people that have no connection to the people they're trying to influence. In fact, they probably sit in an office in Soho, which is far removed from the life or the day-to-day goings-on of a housewife in your office. And so that was great because it gave me a job to try and explain and bring that person to life. But actually, it's bloody hard work and it doesn't always come off. And I can't tell you the amount of times that I've sat in focus groups and presenting these ideas that have been developed to unsuspecting housewives from Romford, and they turn around and say, who the hell wrote this? Clearly not a woman, for a start, and certainly somebody who doesn't understand the life that I'm living in. And also, another problem is, most creatives tend to be male. There are women creatives in the advertising industry, but not as many as there should be. And so, there's a disconnect there. Now, I think this slide for me sums up, the problem really well. It's by a guy called Hugh MacLeod, satirical cartoonist, and says if you talk to people the way advertising talks to people, they punch you in the face. So it's quite interesting, isn't it? We think that as communications or brand practitioners, that it's okay to just go up to people and say, what you've been doing all these years is wrong. We know better, and this is the right thing to do. And we think we've got a God-given right to force our way into people's homes and tell them a better way of doing things. And that just seems wrong. Yes. So tonally, the whole industry is kind of a bit out of whack with the way that things work these days. So it's well documented that power is shifting, and if you read any books by Seth Godin or Charles Ledbetter, it is, we're in an era where the tables are being turned. Probably not as quickly as we would like, but power is shifting from brands to consumers. And I think this sums it up really well for me by Craig Newmark, founder of Craigslist. And it says, by the end of this decade, power and influence will shift largely to those people with the best reputations and trust networks, from people with money and nominal power. Everyone gets a chance to participate in large or small ways, giving a voice to the silent majority. Okay, really interesting stuff, and very exciting if you're a consumer. Now, there's a few examples where this power has been brought to bear with pretty powerful consequences. We all know the case of X Factor, where their surefire #1 artist was knocked off that the #1 spot by a group of disgruntled consumers or people out there who decided that they didn't want that to happen. Probably a more dramatic example is, the fall of an institution, I guess, for a lot of people, a newspaper that's been around for a long, long time, that through consumer power and doing the wrong things, doesn't exist anymore. So the dangers of not actually listening to consumers and doing things that are in the best interests can be really dark. And I think one of the most damning statistics, I guess, or things, this is the Edelman Trust Barometer, and it shows how our trust and faith in businesses, CEOs in this case, is declining at a pretty rapid rate. And the influence of people like yourself is increasing, again, at a dramatic rate. So about 22 points over a year. So these are the latest figures, 2012. So you're twice as likely to trust a person like yourself than you are a CEO of a corporation or somebody in government. And that's pretty depressing, if you think about it. So these are the people running the companies, producing the products that we buy every week, and we don't trust them. That's not a healthy relationship. So my contention is that if we want to rebuild trust and get people to believe in brands, we have to do things very differently. And the one thing we need to do is get closer to the people we're trying to influence, to our customers, and also allow them to become an integral part of the brands that we're in charge of. And I'll explain what I mean by that. One of the major reasons for doing this is that it's founded on a fundamental truth about life, human nature, which is that people support that which they create. So if we feel we've got a personal interest or we're playing a part in the development of something, we're far more likely to support it and champion it and be loyal to it. And Jamie Oliver, I'm not sort of hailing him as a great success story in terms of social brands, but I think what he's done for the way that we prepare and eat food these days is pretty important. And I think part of his power is, certainly in the early days, felt like he was one of us. He didn't feel like he was some celebrity chef who's far removed from us doing fancy things. He was actually on our side trying to make great food more accessible to more people. And that's the essence of social science. So giving consumers a bigger role, what this is really about is changing the, if you like, the contract that brands have with people they're trying to influence. So moving them from passive recipients to active partners. And this is pretty fundamental stuff. So the traditional way of looking at them is just people who buy the stuff that we make. Is as partners, as users, innovators, bearers of needs and knowledge, so there's an insight element there, testers, testing out new concepts and ideas, consultants, actually making stuff, producing things that we might then want to launch ourselves, as well as just simple consumers. So the role of your customers or your fan base, as a more accurate way of putting it, is far, far more than just people who buy things. Or it can be. So I want to move on to the topic of the day and try and apply this to that, which is gaming. Now, I'm very, very interested in gaming. Part of the reason why I'm here, for a slightly different reason. But the one thing about gaming is it's a great way of engaging an audience. So a lot of the examples of brands that I would term social brands use gaming approaches, from challenges, ways of benchmarking people, seeing where you stand, giving people lifelike experiences where they can explore and test and play with things. There's an element of discovery in there, collaboration and belonging, being part of the group, sharing things and feeding back, and actually being listened to, which is an important part of social brands. And that gaming offers the opportunity to do all of these powerful things, and they're really powerful human drivers that will engage people. So I think gaming has an important role to play in the development of social brands. And I've got a few examples here which I think are brilliant. The first, most obvious one, I guess, and I'm sure we can all think of examples here, is Lego Mindstorms. And I hope I've got the right example here because I'm not a huge user of Lego, I realise. But what Lego were trying to do is they realised that they were producing a creative product that people go and play with and make things with. And so they created an innovation platform which is open, completely open to anybody who wants to engage with it. So what they're doing is appealing to creatively minded people. And I don't mean creative in terms of painting or making art, but just people who have ideas and want to do things, and inviting them to help develop the Lego brand and share that with other fans of Lego. And who knows, it might end up being a new product or the next launch, etc. And for example, this is very current. So they've got the NXT log holiday helper building challenge. So they're challenging people over Christmas to spend time using their Lego to make stuff and create new things. So Lego, it fits really well with that brand as well. But interestingly, Lego was a brand that was in trouble a few years ago, and through embracing this social ethos, if you like, or approach, they've completely turned around their fortunes and hugely successful brand. Probably a more just showing the depth or the breadth of gaming and how that can be brought to life is something that I'm really caught my attention is 90 Quid, where it's a physical game where you literally go around your neighbourhood, mapping it out, following clues, to see who knows their neighbourhood the best. But it was a multiplayer game that was very exciting and was very active. So gaming can take lots of different forms. Another great example is Monopoly City Streets. So Monopoly were launching a new version of the game, and they said, right, we're going to create the biggest Monopoly board ever, which is the world. And you can own the world by playing this game. It's a multiplayer game, and who can make the most, who can create the most, build the most, the biggest property portfolio over a given period of time. Hugely successful. The game had huge benefits to the brand, but it took something that people play amongst 2 or 3 people and took it to a global multiplayer level. And there are numerous examples on different sort of scales, less so maybe pure gaming, but there's certainly, with all of these examples, there is a gaming element, or certainly an element of challenge. From Threadless T-shirts, it's a T-shirt brand where people can submit their designs every month, and then the top designs get printed and sold. And so you get to see people wearing your design, and anybody can enter. Anybody can do that, from experienced designers to just fans of T-shirts. To local councils, we all know about Big Society. Not sure how successful that's been, but certainly on a local level with Barnet and I think Lambeth Council, by engaging their users or their local, their audience, they have they've managed to develop better things that are more relevant for people that are going to use them, and actually got people behind them. And there are great examples of youth centres for young people that don't get trashed anymore because the young people actually help to design and build and create it and feel a sense of ownership. To crowdsourced books for Liberty, the front cover was picked by fans of Liberty, wrote in, to campaigns that transform brands and bring back old brands that have been discontinued, and by popular demand through the power of the social web, Cadbury brought back Whisper, and it's a hugely successful brand now. So voting on the next flavour of Walker's Crisps, to Dell Ideas Store, which is all about Dell's users submitting ideas to improve products and help with MPD. So there's lots of examples, very varied examples of how, by embracing the social brand philosophy and giving your consumers more of a voice, that actually brands profit as a result and build advocacy and get talked about, etc. And this really touches on co-creation. I'm not going to talk at length about this because I could spend half an hour or a few hours talking about this. But it's an interesting philosophy, which is about brands using workshops and social media as a means to give their fans a voice. So I think it's much, much more than that. It's not just giving them a voice, but allowing people to feel a sense of ownership for the things that they love. And that's incredibly powerful. And I participate in lots of these things. And they are really powerful. And the amount of ideas that you generate that you would never come across, or you'd never do if you just sat in a room trying to imagine what it would be like to be one of your customers. You'd never come up with those ideas. They're incredibly powerful and incredibly quick to do. And the whole process is very easy. You just recruit people, you explore concepts, you create ideas, and then you throw it back to your customers and say, this is something that a load of people came up with like you. What do you think? Now, thinking about the issues that I was talking about at the beginning, that people being removed from the process, people being talked at rather than being listened to, it reconciles a lot of those issues. And you can constantly go through this process ad nauseum to recycle, rework, and rebuild and refine ideas. And one way of looking at it is, rather than the traditional planning process where you spend a year thinking about what are you going to do with your brand, you can actually create an adaptive brand planning process which has real-time intelligence through social media monitoring and is a constant sort of partnership between brands and their consumers. From co-creation planning at the beginning, developing big social ideas like the ones I was talking about, then consumers engaging and feeling part of the development of those ideas, and then monitoring, reworking, and the whole thing. It's constantly recycling all the time. Come to the end of my presentation now. Hopefully I've given you an idea of where I think brands will be going, or the development of brands. And think about the humble bee, armies of bees going out there collecting really great raw materials, bringing them in to produce something really special, like delicious honey. There you go.
So, any questions?
Yeah, I've got a question.
Yep.
I can see what you're saying in terms of the brands that you've used in the examples. I just wondered how far you think this can be extended to more prosaic brands.
Yeah.
If I'm selling a washing machine or something like that, how many fans do I have on social media who are sort of interested in being involved in that process?
Yeah, that's a really good question, which is, I guess, a washing machine. Thinking about washing, is that something you really want to engage with? Whether you could create game ideas out of that, I don't know. But certainly, the way to do it is to take the whole process of washing, I guess, and the things that are around it. So a great example is Persil, or it's called Omo, I think, in America. And what they did was create a whole campaign which was about almost a campaign to allow children to be children and get dirty. So the actual product itself might be quite a dull process or experience, but the things that it lets you do, the things that surround it, are the interesting things that have a social element. So, so I think you can do it. You know, even if a humble loaf of bread, you could probably talk about loaves of bread a lot, lectures there. For some reason, lectures that I give. But if you think about, I remember working on tea, for example, when I did you tips, and we did a lot of research into the tea making, and it's just surrounded with loads of great stuff. You know, the first time as soon as you have a problem, somebody comes around and you go, oh, I'll put the tap on and have a cup of tea. So you focus on not the physical aspects of the brand, but the things that surround it, that give you an opportunity to start conversations. And I think that's
that's why you're a marketer, I think, because you see those positives in everything.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
the septic tanks to decide challenging.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you're a mining company, you know, what you know, that's tricky. Or you're a bank. I mean, I didn't talk about banks in this. We're talking about that trust section Chris mentioned, Northern Rock.
I mean, that is a major thing.
That's a really hard thing.
Can I just say a septic tank is the centre of the community?
Yeah.
There you go, we've got to regress.
How can you use this sort of user-centred power to rebuild a brand that's gone wrong?
Yeah, well, I guess Whisper is a good example of that. I'm not sure that Whisper went wrong necessarily. It became the work. Didn't have any news around it. So they actually made their fans news. That makes sense. But I guess a broken brand. I mean, Northern Rock, I can talk about that for a moment. The one thing about Northern Rock was it was so broken as a brand, as a banking brand. It was the most broken and the least trusted brand in the most broken and least trusted category there is. So it couldn't get any worse. It was right down there on the floor, you know, with the gum on the shoe. So what we realised was that whatever we did, it couldn't get any worse. So, and actually when things are that bad, then you can do pretty radical things. And no bank had apologised for the banking crisis when we all knew that it was the bank's fault, that we're in a recession and things are so screwed up. And so the first thing we said was, we're going to issue an apology on behalf of the bank. We're going to say, we knew we messed up, and we're going to put it right. So we turned that negative into a positive. And then the social element was to start debates and discussions with our consumers. And we had 1 million of them, which people didn't even realise we had any consumers. Or customers rather, to help us to find the solution. And that's the opposite of the other banks, which even to this day are still going, aren't we clever, we've got this great new product for you, now go and buy it. They've completely missed the point. Even now, NatWest have people sitting in their branches saying, oh, we've come up with this great thing for you to help you manage your finances. And it's all about them, it's not about consumers. So it's about flipping it around and saying, you're the star, you're the important person.
So how about brands which react to consumers? I'm thinking about the body form viral ad that went out. It was response to somebody's negative emails about women's periods, and about, as a man, he didn't understand that. And they made a humorous video.
Do you think that they were genuine, that the origination of that was genuine, or do you think they did that themselves?
No, it was a genuine thing. It went viral over various tweets and stuff, and then they latched onto it. So it was
so that happened before.
Yeah, and then they reacted to it. So they grabbed that negative comment and made something very funny and humorous for it.
Yeah. Well, I guess Dell is the example of that. I mean, the reason why Dell created Ideas is because their screens were catching fire, and they denied it for about a year. Just in the same way as Toyota did with their brakes, they said it's not a problem, and they tried to push it onto the car. Of course, you can't do that these days. There's too many people out there that have too much access, too much of a voice to allow that to happen. And so Dell had no option, or they did the right thing, which was to say, okay, if you guys feel so passionate about improving things, then we're going to give you a forum to do that. And it's completely transformed the, how their brand's perceived in a good way. So I think it's a good thing, but it has to be done in a very sincere way. With game, if you just do it and you try and sort of paper over the cracks and it's not really genuine, then it won't work.
I think you've also got to close the loop and get them to feed back on it as well. So if you're just reacting, you've got to make sure that you've reacted and then you can show people what you've done.
Well, that's a really good point, which is if you are going to adopt this approach, and that's what adaptive brand planning is all about, is you're constantly feeding off and feeding to your audience and building and developing. So it can't be a one-off thing. That's a really good point. There's lots of brands that have played around with this and they'll do something really interesting, and then that'll be it. And that's a waste and a shame, because it's an opportunity to build and grow.
As a consumer, why should you trust brands to
Yeah.
But there's a lot of things like marketing results,
Yeah. No, it's a good question, and you should really, you have no reason to trust a brand if they are not sincere in what they're doing. Ogilvy have a really good approach, and you can download it from their website. It's called Big Ideal, and there's a really good writer called Simon Sinek who's got a concept called the Golden Circle. And it's all about the reason why brands do what they do. And lots of brands know what they do and how they do it, but not a lot of brands know why they do what they do. And I think in the case of Innocent, they started out with a vision to get people to eat more healthily and to enjoy healthy things that tasted great. And that's a great place to start. So unless a brand starts from a point that's genuine, it's a belief to make the world a better place or to enrich people's lives, then there's no reason why you should trust them. You're right. And just throwing up a Facebook sign, just saying, hey, we want you to give some ideas on such and such. Well, if that's not coming from, or if that's not rooted in some really, some beliefs about the brand that are genuinely to help society, to help people, make people's lives better, then it won't work. And there's so many times, I can't tell you how many times I've worked on, where they just say, oh, I'm working on a Facebook site, and you get 500 fans, and it's a waste of time. Nobody's interested, nobody cares, because there's nothing behind it.
Anything else? Okay, so thank you very much, Craig.